Hiya, welcome to Pickler the podcast. I'm your co-host Stacie Townsend, along with John, the People's Champ Davison. John, welcome to the first episode of 2023. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I know we've been slacking, but I've been busy. I've been busy. The Jags have been doing well, so I think I'm still recovering from the playoff victory this weekend. Still not 100% yet, I don't think. So I'm happy to finally get back on the pod with you.
That's right. Well, we have to ease in a little rest and recuperation will make us a better team for 2023. And I'm really excited for our guests to kick this off. We had our first pro pickleball tournament last weekend for the new year. And I think with all the pro pickleball, when it first started, there was this website that popped up in 2021 that provided unfiltered opinions about pro pickleball. And what a time to come into the sport, because there was certainly a lot to talk about. This website went by No Man's Land Pickleball, NML Pickleball. And at the time, they were two anonymous writers. And I can't believe that they kept it anonymous for about a year, because I think everybody around the sport was speculating who they were. So I think they've been revealed for about a year, but Gritty and Slim were their writing names, and they've been revealed as Chris Ross and Jeremy Comazzetto, passionate 5.0 players and friends out of Canada. So welcome to Pickler the podcast, Chris and Jeremy.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So did I do justice in that introduction? Is there anything in your own words that I missed about NML Pickleball?
I think you pretty much got it. That sums it up pretty well.
So how did this all start, guys? Because, I mean, you were pretty much timed it right with the rise of pro pickleball in the modern era, I think. But how did this all start?
I think the timing was probably happenstance. So we got kind of into – I started playing a little pickleball in the summer of 2017 with my parents and started actually enjoying it. So started to get some friends out, one of those being – Chris, and pretty soon we were getting quite into it, and then we played a tournament in 2018, was like, this is a lot of fun, and started looking for more tournaments and things. So it kind of started taking off, and we were kind of even surprised when we got into it then that there really was no blogs or any content at all. And we started in 2019, we really started playing more tournaments and started really following kind of what was pro pickleball at that time on YouTube and stuff. And we were surprised and thought that a blog would be kind of popular. So fast forward to COVID hit, and in Canada, there was no tournaments, anything during COVID. So suddenly we had a lot more time on our hands, and it was like, maybe we should actually start the blog. And so I think at the time, Chris was actually hurt, so he particularly had some extra time on his hands. So we just kind of started writing, and sure enough, kind of caught on a bit, and we've been having fun with it ever since.
And I'm still flabbergasted that you guys were able to keep your anonymity a secret for so long. But I guess taking it back, why did you start anonymous?
I'll let you take that.
I think it's a couple things. I mean, first of all, we were starting to travel. I think maybe we both have sort of different reasons on this too, but we were starting to travel around for more tournaments, and we knew some people around, at least. Like we're on the West Coast. We're in Kamloops, which is a little bit north of Vancouver in Canada. And so we were traveling around like that Pacific Northwest area and started to get to know some people. And so we weren't exactly sure like how it was going to be received initially, I think. And we said to ourselves, though, like, this is going to come out. If we keep doing this, it's going to come out at some point. So it's not going to go forever. So we've got to stand by what we're going to say. But it was still one of those things where it was just, I think it's such a small world. It still is. It was kind of like, it kind of felt like a weird thing to be doing as well. I think also just from, there's stuff on like Part of My Take, our PFT commenter on that. And there are anonymous blogs out there. So we thought it might be a good idea as well. I don't know, Jer, if you want to add anything.
I think that summarizes it pretty well.
Maybe this is by analogy, but I originally thought of you guys like a pickleball version of Gossip Girl. Like where there was
no idea what that means.
Yeah, so it's like a popular TV show about, there was an anonymous blogger about New York socialites, and it was a popular TV show, which has now been remade on HBO. But that's what I analogize this to. I thought it was hysterical. I was trying to figure it out. The rest of the pickleball population, especially in the pro space, I know had all these theories. John, what was some of the theories that you heard along the way?
I thought it was Mayfield. What's his first name?
Matt Mayfield.
Matt. I thought it was him the whole time because I saw him at every single tournament I went to and was just writing stuff on his phone. And he asked Olivia McMillan a weird question. Are you going to play more tournaments? And where are you from? And all this stuff. And he's writing stuff down. I'm like, all right, he's definitely the guy.
It was poor Matt. Poor Matt, because Matt actually did when we were not. He messaged us, and he was like, "People think I am you guys," and we're like, "Sorry, Matt."
I even commented on one of his posts or something that I thought he was NML, and I think he might have deleted it or something too. I was
who did you think? You thought anyone else though? You thought
I knew there was another person. I knew there was another person I didn't know because I could tell there was two people. But, I didn't know who the other one was. And when you guys came out as being the people, I was like, I don't even know who these guys are. So they really had us fooled.
Well, I think one thing that, I thought a pro player that was very much in that sphere of a top pro player had to be involved because you guys were just getting crazy information, cutting edge, you were breaking some news, and I was stunned at how you were able to get so much information. So any insight into how all that went down, how you guys were able to be so on the cutting edge of the news at the time?
They had some sources.
I don't know quite how we, can say about how we got certain information, but I think that definitely threw some people for a loop. Even some people had started, I think, circling in that we might be the ones, and then they became less sure when we broke some news around the PPA and some MLP stuff and things. They suddenly weren't so sure that it was us. So that was kind of a bit of a threw at some people off the scent because late 2021, I think people started to get an idea that it might be us, but that actually threw them off.
Well, there was someone who was commenting on the blog periodically at one point, like Chris and Jer, and just our names, and we just kept it going. And I think we left those comments up there because we also thought we're gonna ride this out as long as we can. Obviously, some people have figured it out. But I think early on, I remember, I don't know who it was, saying something about us having insider knowledge. And that was before anyone had started sort of reaching out to us with information. And I think at that point, it was actually just us being crazily involved in just looking at stuff and monitoring the pro game. We were so into it, and we would text each other all on the weekends, or we were playing with each other and talk about these tournaments. And so that's sort of also why we were we text each other all weekend anyways. So why don't we just do a blog about it? Because we're already spending all this time texting each other and watching all this stuff, and no one else is doing it.
Well, I think especially impressive since you guys said you were injured or stuck in Canada because of COVID. It takes some skill, I guess, to get some information from being out there rather than at every tournament like some others.
Some people, what was weird is I think some people also just started, we weren't going to seek out a lot of information. People started just messaging us, and I don't think they knew who we were. So it was kind of a weird thing that we had this information just coming to us, and we're sort of trying to figure out what to do with it at the same time too.
Yeah. And so, you guys were, breaking stuff, like a real, news article, like a real news company. It was wow, they're really getting information from somewhere. And it was all at first I thought some of it was kind of just BS, and then things would happen, and I'm like, oh, wow. How do they know all that? especially being someone that's like involved with a lot of the pros already, and I didn't even know some of that stuff, So, hey, good on you guys.
And so it sounds like you revealed yourself maybe because you were forced to, as people were starting to name you. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think we also knew, like, we didn't want to stay anonymous forever, and we were kind of planning to, like, we were able to travel and play tournaments and things, I think, again, so it just kind of seemed like the right time to come out. Like, we kind of always thought if we were going to keep it going that we would reveal our kind of identities at some point, so it just kind of became the right time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also with that, like we were starting to travel for tournaments, I think. So that was last year. So we went to Spokane, Washington, which is about 6-7 hours away driving from here. So we went there in early February, and then we had planned a trip to Punta Gorda. Like we sort of try and do one a year where we can get where we fly somewhere and we're not just driving around our area, because schedules, it's tough to get out with our work schedules and limited vacation time. But so Lauren was one person who had figured out who we were. So she had seen that we were coming and we were on the registration list in Punta Gorda. So she had said we kind of have to. She was like, well, you got to do it with me. And so we were like, well, this all makes sense anyway. So we decided to go ahead and pull trigger.
Prior to that, Kyle McKenzie, who works with Tyson McGuffin, had been playing in that Spokane tournament, and he knew that we were NML, or thought we were, and he asked if we were, and we said yes. And then on the Tyson podcast, they announced that he had played NML in the gold medal match. So anybody who wanted to spend a minute on pickleball tournaments could figure it out at that point.
So was there a weak link in first leaking it for all these folks to figure it out?
I don't think so. I don't know how. I would actually like to talk to a few people. Go ahead, Jer. Oh, Jer's still there. So anyway, I think that people were figuring it out on their own, and they had maybe been very close but weren't 100% sure, in 2021 at certain points, and they were quite confident. And then we broke that PPA news that Dundon was buying the PPA, and that was oh, wait, I don't think I have this right. But actually and then someone else who had been close to figuring it out was down in Arizona playing some tournaments, and local guy, and he helped someone figure it out 100%. So, and then I think that was probably the first person who was 100%.
Yeah.
At least that we were aware of.
Right. Now, have you guys had more engagement since coming out as who you are, or do you think it's been the same?
I think it's been a slow growth. I don't think the identities being revealed had really affected anything. I think some people were wondering whether we could keep doing what we were doing, and our goal the whole time was to try and just keep things the same, no different, before and after, and anything that we said before we knew was going to come out at some point. But I think really it's just been sort of a steady, slow, progressive growth with just, I think, we're using a blog, which isn't, that's not maybe the most effective way of getting a wide reach nowadays. But it is there's a slow growth of people finding us. And as Pro Pickleball gets bigger and, we just keep putting out content. If people find it, they like it. I think it's just, it's sort of that slow burn kind of growth for us.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have been steadily pumping out content. I mean, every week, but I'm curious though, now that you've come out, have you gotten any messages from some of the pros you guys have roasted, or you don't have to say their names, but have some people reached out to you personally yet?
Yeah, some pros definitely reached out while we were still anonymous, and then there's definitely been more since we weren't anonymous. Most are fairly friendly with a few. Well, actually, I should say they're all friendly. A few obviously aren't happy with what we write, but the ones that aren't happy generally don't, slide into our DMs. It's usually they're happy or they might become less happy. People like it when we write nice things. If they were critical, obviously, they're not quite as happy, but you get mixed reactions. But we haven't had, outside of, I can think of maybe one, or two, we haven't had a lot of people really take issue with what we write. But
yeah, was one of them named John Davison?
John, unfortunately, 100%. We don't write about John enough. John needs to play more pro tournaments.
I know, I do. I think I commented on one of them when you guys weren't sure of Olivia McMillan, how her impact would be the first MLP, and I said, "You wait," and they made it to the quarters or whatever, and I got you guys to own up to your bad prediction.
It's not the first of our bad predictions, so
I was going to say we have a lot of bad takes and I think one thing that sometimes pros forget is that we are just opinion. One of the issues they sometimes have is our lack of data, but it's like we're definitely an opinion blog, not a data-based blog.
Right. Hey, I mean, I like it. Keep it coming. But, you're just talking about one or two people being upset. It wasn't me, but was it Travis Rettenmaier when he started calling you guys out? Was it friendly challenge or did you guys piss him off?
So I'll let Chris explain.
Travis reached out. I think he reached out a couple times, but I can remember one before he made the 100K challenge thing. He had actually reached out about something. I don't know if it was from that weekend or a previous thing. I'd have to go back and look. But he reached out and he got mad about something, but he'd actually misread what we wrote. And so I think he took down what he was angry about. But I think he might have been angry about other stuff that we write here and there. But yeah, he had reached out at least one time before, but he had misread what we'd written actually. And so I corrected him. And then he had that 2 versus 1 challenge 100K thing that spurred into what it is now. But so he hadn't reached out a ton before, but I think once or twice.
Well, I think I can speak for everybody. I think we all want to see that happen.
So John, explain what happened really quick, the 100K. Someone explain it just so everybody's on the same page in case they missed it.
For those who don't know, if I get it, correct me if I'm wrong, Travis got upset about a take you guys did on him, and he said you guys are like 2-3-5s that can't play pickleball, and he'll challenge you $100,000 to a 2v1. And I guess you guys accepted it.
So I think what happened is that it was actually something we didn't write in like a live blog, which was that he got like the points against old man Adam Stone. And I think that he dominated Adam Stone and won the Dream Breaker for the Smash. And we didn't actually specifically mention that, although, and I'm sure Travis doesn't realize sometimes these live blogs, we can't watch every second, especially on like a weekday. These are just, sometimes we're just looking at some results if we're being honest. And anyway, so he said something, 2 versus, I'll just take these guys on, these guys, poor journalism, something like that. And I'll take these guys 2 versus 1 any day and 100K anytime. And so then a couple weeks later, we put out a longer post saying we accept his challenge. So that's the genesis of it.
And so hopefully we'll see this in the future. Still in discussions about what this challenge looks like.
You know what?
Still in discussion.
We want to make it happen. Originally, he was gung ho. We've said we'll put up the money. We've said we'll play anytime, anywhere. We've had a couple dates that he's moved, and he's now telling us he doesn't like deadlines, which I'll let you take that for what you want. But it's not looking promising, but we would love to play the match.
Yeah, we really want to make it happen. We had a couple dates earlier on that we had agreed to. It took a little bit to agree to format, and he had a place in St. Petersburg that it's been very important to Travis since the beginning that this happened at a venue, and it's kind of an event, which is fine by us. We're happy to do that. It just doesn't matter either way, just whatever can make it happen. And then those dates didn't end up working out for whatever reason. And then we talked about a new date in February. And then Travis eventually got back to us, said, "Oh, actually, holding a private bet, it's illegal in Florida." Which I guess we did some brief Googling. It does sound like it's illegal to hold a private bet in Florida. So he said he's going to go. So they said, "Okay, fine." He said he's going to look for an alternate venue location. That was sort of end of November. We had a couple follow-ups with him in December. Didn't hear anything, and so that's why we were planning on updating. And we then followed up with him one more time, actually last week, and he did respond to us. So it was over a month since we had heard from him, and then he just let us know like he sort of fell off his priority list, but he still wants to do it. It has to be at a venue, but he's still looking into it. So we've said that we sort of gave him a time range that we want to get this sort of sorted out by end of February, and we gave him like any time like April to October, anywhere, doesn't matter, courts. Venue, local courts, we'll do anywhere. Just make sure, as long as we have time to plan it. So that's sort of where it's been left off. So I guess we'd say it's not looking promising, but we're still here wanting to do that.
Can't we get Steve Kuhn and Duper and all these folks to help us out? I mean, there's got to be some Duper, like this could be a good experiment. What's the
just
Duper
do it at MLP
analogy?
Sure.
Yeah.
That was actually... my last text to Travis actually suggested that we use that Newport MLP date end of June, and I said, well, we don't know them, but he said it seems like they might be happy to do that. I have no idea. Travis has connections with them, obviously, as a part owner and player. So I don't know if he's reached out and made those connections, but we've sort of left it in Travis's hands to find a venue and location because he's said that's what he would do.
Do you know what the according to Duper, what the odds might be? I mean, I think you guys are both 5-0 doubles players, so it'd be interesting to see what
I have no clue what the odds might be. We think just from a no data opinion that we are favored, but otherwise we wouldn't take the bet. But I don't think we have, unless Jared has anything, I don't think we have any odds.
Yeah, I would say, because I learned after the bet was made, Travis, was doing it. I was like, oh, heck yeah, do it. Like, that's amazing. And then I realized you guys played like 5-0. And I'm like, I don't know if that'd be very easy to do, I mean, he's a good singles player, but still. That's tough.
I think he remains confident that he'll win, but he wasn't aware when he made the bet at all that we were 5-0s because he had to ask for our identity after. So I do think he thought we were 3-5. So I don't know if he would have maybe accepted as readily if he knew like we were 5-0s. But as I said, he does still at least publicly maintain he's confident.
I saw him post an Instagram story or something of him playing some guys 2-on-1. So he's training for it.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing is that he's got. I think he does this semi-regularly. He's done some 2-on-1, so we have to find a way to get some. We want to find a way to get some 2-on-1 practice. Like just because the strategy's got to be a little bit different. We know it is in terms of what you have to do and what you're trying to make the other guy do, but we also remain confident.
I just can't wait to see it. I hope it's at MLP so I can watch it in person.
It seems like the perfect case study. It seems like the perfect case study for all this gambling talk, right? It's like, It's perfect. I feel like we should lean into it.
I know. We really need pickleball betting legal. What do you guys think?
I think 100%. That's probably the number one thing that would grow the sport, especially from a viewership perspective. Is I can't even probably really put a number on it, but it would exponentially, I think, increase viewership and things of the sport overnight.
Oh, it absolutely would. I mean, half my friends are all degenerates, including podcast Nick, and they find just anything to bet on like every day. So, I mean, I think it's right. I think a PPA video could go from like 4,000 live views that it gets now to like 10,000 as soon as you introduce betting. I think that's pretty realistic, like right away.
I don't know if this just came out today, but there's some $1 million prize money thing with Agassi and Roddick and McEnroe and I think Michael Chang that someone set up. I forget who. But I saw Brooks Wiley actually make a call, or maybe it wasn't to that, but Brooks Wiley, commissioner of MLP, was commenting or replying to someone on Twitter, and he seemed to indicate that gambling was coming soon in his reply. I mean, we've been hearing this for, I don't know how long we've been hearing that gambling's coming. Yeah. PPA had that deal with a company to put gambling in. It seems like I think you've talked about on the podcast here, the concerns about, people throwing matches and stuff like that because they're just not making that much money. But I mean, gambling would have to bring in eyeballs. I think we're both very pro bringing in gambling to the sport. So hopefully it comes in soon.
Yeah. I hope it does. I think it'll make the sport explode. And then I think you'll get the real athletes coming in.
Are you saying they're not real athletes right now?
More real athletes. Well, I mean, in the last 2 years, you're seeing a lot of real athletes come over, So I'm just saying like more like high level athletes take the sport seriously and just make the transition.
For sure. The more money that's in the sport, right? The more people that will be willing to dedicate themselves full time.
Yeah, exactly. But that needs to happen ASAP.
So what's holding it back? You think it's the concern about people throwing matches and not enough data? Are those the two?
I think it's the data.
Data or data?
Data.
Okay.
Data, I think.
He's Canadian. Don't worry about his pronunciation.
I think it is I think that is the big thing though, is that they don't have reliable gambling odds to create. It seemed like Duper might be confident previously that you could just use Duper to have matches and create odds that way, which I don't see why you couldn't do that and just see how that go. I mean, I guess that's not how these companies want to operate, but
yeah.
No, but you can put limits on lines, right? Like you can put a cap at 250 or $500. It's like all the special, like kind of event type gambling odds things. They're all capped. They could easily cap it. I do think that there probably is an issue though still too with the overall kind of like legitimacy of the sport. And even if we're looking at things like MLP and stuff, they're so new and how those teams are formed. And we've got things like we've got owners and players and GM players and things, obvious conflicts of kind of interest. And I think you got to get those sorted out sooner than later, let alone the potential issues around players having incentive to throw matches. But again, if you've got a cap on those matches, it's tough, less incentive for a player to throw them if somebody can only make $500 on the match. But
yeah, and I think additionally too, and we talked to Mark Pfeiffer about this, the referee, and I think we need the live scoring data to to actually like come in so they can see who gives the spread of games like throughout the game, right? Like who's choking matches, who's like dominating, right? And then I think that will make it better too, because you can bet live odds as well. So I think once the referees actually get like tablets in their hands and they can actually collect more data about the game, I think that Vegas would need, in my opinion, to actually make lines and prop bets.
And that's probably correct.
So you mean that the refs should move away from having a clipboard with a little pin on it at some point?
Yes. The paper clip and the where they flip it upside down and everything. Yeah, someone needs to develop an app that you go to pickleballtournaments.com or whatever website and it's just live scoring. Like I think that would on every single court. And I think you'd probably also need streaming on every pro court as well, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, Nunnery's talked about that a bunch on his podcast, just putting, and I think you might talk about it as well, just putting cameras, like just put baseline cameras out there and just stream a bunch of courts. I think the PPA had that essentially for their court 2 this past weekend. So, and we thought that was great. Like, just put up more, and then we get more matches, and we don't have to see Ben and Colin beat up on John Doe and Joe Schmo.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And then you can see like them in real time, and then Vegas can actually make real research on the scoring, I don't know. Just it needs that first step, I think, for sure. A lot more data collection needed. But I'm game for it. I want betting to come.
Do you think it happens this year?
No.
I don't think so. No, as well.
They have the DraftKings pools now, like the for PPAs, and I forget to do it every single time. But it's like whoever gets first in it gets $5,000 or whatever. But it's like, who's going to wear pink on Sunday? Like, how many players? How many players on the championship court are going to have an ATP? And like, how many ATPs are there be? Like, I think that's fun. I think so they're definitely collecting the data, but I don't think it's ready this year until we get a lot more of that granular data throughout an entire match.
So what do you think we will see this year in 2023? Any NML predictions?
Hot takes.
Oh, hot takes. Jerry, you got anything?
It's probably not boiling hot. I don't think that the Johns Bros will be the number 1 men's doubles team by the end of the year. I think they'll be at least second, and there's a good chance they could be third, and we'll be looking at, will the Johns Bros be partnering in 2024 or not, will be a major storyline by the second half of the year, I think.
So who takes the first and second spot then? I'm guessing Matt and Riley, and who else?
Dylan and JW. And I think the big deciding factor here is going to be right side players that can create offense, which you have with Matt and Dylan. Like those are just 2 teams with elite hands where you've got 2 guys that can really create offense. Actually, I think the one limiting factor on Dylan and JW is JW still doesn't create enough offense like off the bounce as he should, because I think he might have the best hands in the game, but I think that those teams are going to start really causing the Johns brothers some problems unless they change up their style a bit, which they, given their success, they haven't seemed too inclined to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're seeing a lot more teams get a lot closer now. I think JW and Dylan were up 9-6 in the third, I believe.
9-6 in the second too.
They were up 9-6
in the second to close it out, right? Yeah, and they ended up losing.
Yeah,
but, you're seeing Matt and Riley, some other teams really push them. Get a couple wins here and there, but I could see that happening.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm actually in full agreement there with Jared, but I can see it happening. I mean, AJ and Declan are going to team up too. I know there's sometimes that's a team that maybe can figure some things out together. I don't know if any new teams are going to come in to be able to upend them like in men's doubles that quickly. But JW and Dylan, like they look so good against the Johns brothers basically until I think Dylan sped Van up at 7-9, lost the speed up, and they sort of lost their aggressiveness at that point, and they never really got it back the rest of the match. So if they can keep their foot on the pedal against the Johns brothers, their combined hands, I think, to Jared's point, is better than the Johns brothers, and gives them an edge there. So they just, like Matt and Riley, are able to keep their pedal to the metal on in their strategy. So if Dylan and JW, they're not wired maybe the same way that Matt and Riley are, but if they can find a way to keep pushing, they might be able to take them over.
Well, how about a James and Tyson? What's your prediction there? Is Tyson going to do better with James or better with De Villiers?
I think long-term James is a better partner, but I think also the men's fields are a lot deeper this year. It's going to be really tough to make those podiums. There's the 3 teams I talked about, as Chris said. There's Deco and AJ are teaming up, and then you do have James and Tyson, and you've got still your Tyler Loons and Callan Dawson's playing together. DJ and Jay DeVilliers is another interesting team. So I actually like the upside of James Ignatowicz and Tyson better than Jay and Tyson, but I think to actually replicate the success that Tyson and Jay had last year will be difficult just due to the depths of the fields.
Yeah, it's crazy. The men's field is just so deep right now. I mean, even if you look at even the qualifier rounds, half the teams in the qualifier rounds are legit players. It makes me not want to play any tournament because it means I had to put work in. But so I don't know. Maybe I'll make a comeback to the qualifiers. Maybe I'll beat Sam Query in there.
You got to get in now if you want to beat Sam. Now's the time.
I ain't worried.
Are you out on Sam as a long-term project?
No, I mean, I think he can definitely adjust. I think his size is tough, especially for doubles. And even single, the way he can obviously play and hit a ball well, right? But I think his adjustment's going to take a little bit longer than I think someone who's maybe 23 years old, super athletic, 6 foot, Like I would think I'd be interested to see who picks it up faster, Noah Rubin or Sam Query. I don't know that answer.
I think that's a fair question. So Sam Query or Matt Manassi for MVP of the Challenger Division this coming event?
Neither one of them.
Well, that doesn't seem fair to either of them. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I mean, I could be very wrong. But I mean, you still have really good guys that are already like real premier level, and girls that are premier level players that are in the challengers, like I was surprised to see Rob Nunnery not get picked first. So
yeah, he went way too low for his ability for sure. But then that challenger draft was filled with some weird picks and just like some weird stuff. I think Rob should have gone right near the top for sure.
I mean, I think, most teams probably wanted to pick a female first because they had less depth there to choose from, which I think a lot of teams did. But I thought Sam Query went a little too high, if you ask me.
I'm probably talking too much about Sam Query these days, but yeah, I think he's fine to pick there, but he went way too high, and we'll see. Stefan's a good partner for him. Stefan's a good player. And he looked a little better this past weekend, but it's hard for me to see them having early success at least. But I mean,
yeah, maybe by the third tournament, maybe after some more experience. Look, I mean, I want him to succeed. I want the tennis guys to come over too. It just makes the sport better. I don't know. He didn't look as good as Jack Sock right away.
No, when Jack Sox comes over, we'll see tennis guys succeeding, I think, at the highest level.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all for it. I want to see them come over and try their hand at it, It's only good for the sport. So I hope I get to play him. I get to play him.
What do you think the runway is for an average high-level tennis player? Like how much time do they need to really transition?
What do we call
so like
average?
The player that comes to mind that why Anna Bright for me seemed to come into pickleball very quickly, and a year later she's partnering, or just over a year later she's partnering with Anna Lee Waters, playing amazing. So what do you think like the average runway might be?
So I think Jer has some good thoughts on this, so I want to leave it to Jer.
I think that the runway is going to get longer and longer. Anna is a good example of somebody who came over and had almost immediate success. And again, She was a little lucky in that she was in an area where she had access to very high level play before she even started playing tournaments. So she was playing with pro players for months before we actually saw her. She might have only been like 4 or 5 months into her pickleball journey, but the amount she played gave her a huge edge. I think with tennis players, we're used to seeing really good tennis players come in and almost be instantly good at pickleball. I think as of this year, that's changing. You look at Noah Rubin, Ali Kick, and Sam Querrey, they all had pretty rough weekends. And I think there's a new learning curve. We've now got other really good tennis players who have been playing pickleball for a while now, and they're actually working at pickleball. They're playing a couple sessions a day, 7 days a week. So their actual pickleball ability and knowledge is higher. I think it's minimum 6 months now for an elite tennis player, like somebody who's played probably close to pro level. And I think it's going to start transitioning to a year plus that we can really see them perform at the very top level, which is, to be honest, a change from where we've seen tennis players come in and have almost instantaneous success.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I would say a year. To get rid of the bad habits, to learn the whole new game. And it also depends, like what you said, who they're around and how seriously they're taking it, right? Like, are they a full-time pickle player now? Like I think James Ignatowicz and Anna, those people, they are training twice a day, every single day with the Waters and JW and like all those pros. I think they're kind of the exception to that rule, where I think if you had like a top 100 to 200 tennis player, they almost need those better players around them to make that transition a lot quicker, in my opinion.
But I think what gets forgotten with Jack's sock, or it's just not known, it's not forgotten necessarily, is that Jack sounds like he's been playing a ton of pickleball over the past couple years. He's not like Sam. Sam's just sort of got into it sort of by happens. Like he's been playing a little bit here and there, and he plays with like Wes Burrows and maybe like Doug Ellen and some celebrities and some other maybe 5-0 guys here and there. But I think Jack's pretty into it. So it's not just like he's just like gone from the tennis court and was like, oh, I'm really good. It's like, well, he plays pickleball regularly and he loves it. So it's not just like instantaneously good because he's so talented and he's this great doubles player. It's also that he's got some, I don't know exactly what his like pickleball play looks like on a regular basis, but our understanding is that it sounds like, he does quite a bit of it. So that's the other aspect that might make people be like, oh, well then, if all these guys come in, they'll just be immediately good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think you need those people around you for sure. And you got to dedicate, or else, because all these, the pickleball players the last couple of years are now legit pro athletes. Whereas before the tours started, you maybe had a handful of them. Now you have a whole draw full of these players that are training 24/7 and taking it seriously. So you can't just expect to come over right away and dominate if you don't put the work in at this point in the way the game's at.
What about on the women's side? We talked about the men's side. Do you have any predictions? Does anybody touch Annalie Waters in 2023 or push her?
I don't know if anyone touches Annalie Waters. We'll see, because Anna Bright again. She came in so quickly. Paris came in so quickly last year, but I have loved Etta Wright, and I sort of backed off a little bit before MLP when we were working on our boards together, and working on rankings. But I think she's a top 3 female pick by the second season of MLP. She might need some. There might be a little struggle plateau period here, but by the time second season MLP rolls around, I think she can be a top 3 pick.
Wow.
Top 3 female pick.
I think
Yeah.
I think in doubles, like some Anna Bright, maybe an Etta Wright, that some players can catch up maybe to Anna Lee. It's hard to see anybody kind of catching her in singles this year, especially if Paris Todd isn't playing the PPAs, which currently kind of looks like she's not going to be playing a lot. And then it also depends, like if Anna Bright and Annalay end up playing most of the women's doubles together this year, I don't see anybody really touching them this year, but you never know.
Yeah. I think it's going to be tough for anybody to catch AL. Agree. I think Paris would be the best one for singles, but with her playing pretty much all APPs, I would guess, or at least mostly APPs, we probably won't see that matchup as often as I think most of us would like to see. But you're seeing a lot more women come into the game now too. The women's field is starting to get deeper and deeper, which has been needed for so long. Now you're actually getting, 15 plus teams in a women's draw, which is pretty good compared to like at some point, even last year it was like 10 teams maybe in women's doubles. So I don't know. I don't think anybody will touch AL this year though, at least in a dominating way. Maybe a couple people get some wins here and there, but which I'm sure is very possible. But I think she's going to get a lot of triple crowns again this year.
I think it'll take a few tournaments, but I am curious to see once Anna Bright and Riley Newman start playing together, how they stack up against Anna Lee and Ben if we're talking triple crowns. I think you give them a couple tournaments, they have to figure some things out, even what sides they want to play, but they have the hands to hang in and cause some issues for Ben and AL, and I kind of actually would, if you're saying second half of the year, I think that Riley and Anna might be ahead of them. That Nationals with Ben with Catherine and Riley with AL was really interesting. They basically lit up Ben for 3 straight games. So.
Yeah, well, I think they took like a different strategy too. And I have to credit Kyle McKenzie when I was on Tyson's podcast. He was saying that Ben is such a good off the ball kind of player, so he's not used to people just attacking him 100% of the time. So his offense is like really creating pressure and making the court feel small. But if you make it feel smaller to him, then maybe that's where somebody starts to find those holes. I mean, not easy to do, obviously. But yeah, I could see a team like Riley and Anna Bright giving them a run for their money, for sure.
And people have seemed to figure out, and Ben's working on it, but that top left shoulder for him, that high left shoulder ball is it's a vulnerable spot for him, and AL attacked that hard in that Nationals match. So he's working on it, but it still seems to be a vulnerable spot for him.
Yeah, I mean he's number one for a reason. Like he'll make the adjustments too, So, but hey, I'm all about getting some new people in the gold medal top podium spot, because I mean it's cool to see some people you like win over and over again, but at the same time it gets a little too predictable.
New storylines would be a good thing, but I am still an Annalie Waters fan. But new storylines is probably much needed. So any other hot takes for 2023? Do PPA and MLP get along all year long? Does APP do anything to mix it up? Any other takes for the year?
I don't have anything hot from that. I think PPA, MLP probably get along. It looks like that's going fine. APP, that's just an unknown right now, but no real opinion on that.
I think I'm curious what the APP will do this year, because they've kind of aligned with Universal Tennis, which has some real reach in the tennis world. So if you're trying to pull more tennis players over, it'd be interesting to see what they can do with some of the partnerships that they've created. And then there's always Nationals and US Open, which it sounds like the pro players may not be participating in, but it'll still be interesting to see what those events hold, as they're always some of the best on the year.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what either tour is going to look like in 12 months. I have no idea.
Could you imagine, I mean, where we sit today? Could you have predicted this 12 months ago, guys?
I think I knew all along if PPA got
Yeah.
along with MLP that would hurt the AVP. I think that was obvious the whole time, but
for sure.
yeah,
And
I mean,
if the APP
business.
stays out of the player kind of compensation market going forward, I do wonder what that looks like for players and compensation in the game if there isn't that, if MLP and PPA are kind of at peace, like players are going to quickly lose their leverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you just have that one company, right? But I've always kind of attributed it to like the UFC and Bellator, right? Like if you're, in the MMA, you have the two to three organizations that have all the top athletes and they compete for each other with the money. So yeah, I would say if APP is not going to try to keep fighting that battle with the checkbook, it's going to be tough for them to keep all the talent for sure. But then if that happens, will the PPA keep shelling out the money too for the players?
I don't think so.
Hopefully.
Well,
I hope so. At the end of the day, I just want the players to get paid. I don't care where anyone plays, really, as long as the players are getting taken care of.
Yeah, the problem is they're not going to get their appearance. Like they're getting whatever the appearance fees that we really don't know what those values are. Like they're different for all the players, but those like the prize money will stay, but the appearance fees are going to go to a certain degree, at least for especially the middle tier players. Probably it's going to be really hard because it's sort of hard to see what the APP's plan is when they're now cutting streaming on the first 2 days of the tournament. They're not going to pay appearance fees to players. They say they're going to run pro tournaments, but are they going to run pro tournaments in the long term? It'd be no clue where they're going to be at next year compared to where it looked like they were going to be even a couple months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I know Ken well enough that he would hate to give up the pro division. I think that means so much to him. So I don't see the APP pro division going anywhere, but definitely it got stunted over the last couple months. But yeah, I don't know their long-term plan. I mean, obviously partnering with UTR certainly helps, like Stacie mentioned. So we'll see. I don't know.
It's hard to compete with the money of PPA and MLP, right? They're doing it very organic growth on the APP side, and PPA and MLP are a very capital intensive growth.
Yes.
So, any final questions, John, for our guys over at NML Pickleball?
Yeah, who's going to win Premier? Who's going to win Challenger? Top two in each, maybe. Who's in the finals?
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm trying to think about the teams right now. I like Seattle a lot for Premier. That's Ben's team with Tyler and Megan Chiendazon and Etta Wright. So I probably picked them to win. That was my first thought. Jer?
Yeah, I think we both kind of have Seattle in the Premier, and then I'm just trying to think in the Challenger.
I like whatever Rob's team is. Rob's team in the Challenger. I like that team. I like the Ranchers. That's Steve Deacon, Pat Smith, Lee Whitwell, and I'm blanking right now. Another veteran, isn't it?
Which team did you say? The Ranchers.
The Ranchers.
Pat Smith. Euro. I think it's the Erie. What's her name? Girikina. Steve Deacon.
Jeannie.
Is it Jeannie Rokina?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I can tell you who's going to win. It's the Black Diamonds. They're going to win all three in the first season. Michelle, Olivia, Spencer, and Rob. You heard it here first.
Like that team, although I like that team.
So, I mean, that team is probably going to win all three. Just throwing that out there. They have one of the higher duper scores. So
how do Rob and Michelle get along together on the same team? How does that work?
I don't know if they're going to play together or you're going to have Olivia with Rob.
Olivia with Rob.
Olivia likes playing the left. Olivia likes playing the left too. So 2 lefties on one side. Who knows? I think that would probably be the team if I were to put it together. If I was the team manager, I would go Olivia, Rob, Spencer, and Michelle.
But you give up your advantage, I think, of, righty, lefty in the middle. I think there was an advantage to that when you saw Sarah Ansbury play with Jade Kawamoto and Althoff and Dylan. They had that good run in Austin. So I do think there's hopefully they can pull it together, Rob and Michelle. Because I do think there is some advantage in the MLP format.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an exciting. They're definitely going to bring the spunk, so that'll only help them.
The challenger team I like actually is, I can't remember which city they are, but it's the Pablo Tellez, Christian Alshon, Yua, and Rachel Summers. I think they not maybe as many well-known players, but I think they're going to surprise a lot of people.
I think it's the Breakers, the Bay Area.
Yeah, that's right.
Bay Area Breakers. Okay.
You're not the
like
fives?
the
You don't like the fives with the number one pick?
Oh, the fives. I worry the fives are. I worry that I don't know if the men will hold up. Like, really like Ignatowicz, but he's he was picked. I don't know. He's maybe high, and then Hayden's a good player, but just how it stacks up against other teams. That's the worry there. They'll be a really interesting test case, but. Not like I could definitely see them getting to that top spot, but wouldn't pick them myself.
Well, I think it's interesting because they have a really strong singles team.
Mm-hmm.
So they could get hopefully 2-2 and win all the Dream Breakers. So maybe that washes out any concern you have on the men's side.
Yeah. And you're probably going to have AL win both of hers in probably every match, I would assume. And I think James and Hayden can definitely pull together some wins. I think both have like high peaks and, sometimes a couple lows. So I think it depends on, which, like where they show up. But Hayden's played pretty good lately. So I don't know. They could shock some men's teams, especially rally scoring too. Makes the game so much closer. Anything can really happen.
There's a lot of weapons between those two for sure.
Yeah.
It's just also in mixed, especially Hayden. I think things can go a little bit like peaks and valleys. Like if Hayden's on, that's a scary team with him and Leia. But, that could easily go the other way as well. And then you are looking, and then you're putting a lot on Annalise' shoulders, which she's very used to dealing with. So it might not be a concern at all. But I also do wonder, those Dream Breakers are pretty volatile. And they're very important, and they've got a really good singles team. But are they invincible as a singles team? That'll be interesting to see if they get into Dream Breakers, because we don't have enough of those Dream Breakers to really know how like a really good team does against like maybe a good or average Dream Breaker team.
That's fair.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I have no idea what's going to happen. But that's the good thing about MLP, though. Anything can happen. And I think that's what makes the excitement so much better. But hopefully at some point this year, you and Travis will play each other, you guys against Travis, at some MLP before the main event, the gold final. I think that would be a good pregame show.
Well, there you go. Travis, if you can make that happen, we're game.
All right. I'll have to send Travis a message and say to do it.
I think the way in is Steve Kuhn and Duper. Make it a Duper event. That's what I think.
Yeah. Have it at Steve's house in Austin.
We've said anywhere, anytime.
We're anytime, any place. We're good.
Any other final thoughts, Chris and Jeremy? Anything else that you'd like everybody to know about you and what you're doing over at NML Pickleball?
No, just, if you're interested, like what you hear, like what you read, follow, like everything is NML Pickleball. It's nmlpickleball.com, and all our social stuff is NML Pickleball.
Great. Well, I echo that. Everybody should go if you're interested in pro pickleball and you want to have some entertaining and really knowledgeable takes on the sport, nmlpickleball.com, and social media. It's well worth the time investment to read. And make sure you subscribe to Pickler over at thepickler.com. Smash that YouTube button, as John would say, to make sure you follow all the latest podcasts and other videos at Pickler. And John, anything else you want to take us out?
That's it. Boys, I don't know if you have any drinks in your hands, but we always cheers the camera to end it out. But thanks for joining. I look forward to more hot takes this year.
Right.
And let's have some fun this year. All right?
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us. Pickler out.
Guys.
Cheers.